Have you ever tried to fix a problem, but your so-called fix actually made everything exponentially worse?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Right. Like, think about it. You try to organize your messy desk by just shoving absolutely everything into a single drawer. Out of sight, out of mind.
A classic strategy.
Exactly. But then the next morning, you can't find your keys, your bills are late, and the drawer is jammed shut so tightly you basically have to break it to get it open.
Yeah, you solved one problem but created like 3 worse ones.
Exactly. We see this in daily life all the time. But when this kind of unintended consequence happens in a multi-billion-dollar global supply chain, it can be absolutely catastrophic.
Oh, it's the difference between a minor headache and a company completely going out of business.
Right.
Because in these massive global networks, every single action ripples outward. You pull a lever over here to save $1, and suddenly you are bleeding thousands of dollars somewhere else that you aren't even looking at.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today.
Welcome to this deep dive into the source material. We are so thrilled to have you with us.
Yes, welcome.
Because, you're the kind of person who wants to know how things really work behind the scenes. And today, we have an incredible blueprint for you. We are pulling back the curtain on the APCS, Certified Logistics, Transportation, and Distribution.
Also known as the CLTD.
Right, the CLTD learning system, specifically the 2026 version. And we're looking really closely at Module 9, Section B.
Yeah, and that specific section focuses heavily on coordinating strategic performance management, which is essentially how to track what actually matters.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is to decode how the world's most complex logistics networks actually measure success, how they avoid those disastrous unintended consequences we just talked about,
Right.
and how you can use this as a shortcut to understand the DNA of really any high-functioning system. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. Because before we can talk about building a world-class measurement system, we have to look at how measuring the absolute wrong things drives terrible, terrible behavior.
It is a classic behavioral trap.
Yeah.
What you choose to measure creates an immediate magnetic incentive for the people being measured.
Right. They want to hit the goal.
Exactly. And if you aren't careful, you get what the source text calls unintended consequences. People will work to drive a metric in a favorable direction to prove they're doing a good job, but they will completely ignore or sacrifice anything that isn't actively being measured.
Well, the text has a perfect example of this. It talks about a purchasing agent whose performance is measured purely on purchase price variance.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag right there.
Right. Basically, their whole annual review, and probably their bonus, is based on getting the lowest possible price per unit. So what do?
They buy in bulk.
Massive bulk. They buy raw materials in absolutely massive quantities to get a huge volume discount, and they naturally pick the absolute lowest bidder.
Which, looks fantastic on their individual performance review. On paper, they saved the company a ton of money on the initial purchase price.
But it's a total disaster for the company. It makes me think of going to one of those massive warehouse club stores. You see a 50-gallon drum of mayonnaise. And you think, wow, I am saving $10 on the unit price of mayonnaise.
Oh, no.
So you buy it feeling like a total financial genius. Yeah. But you get home, and this drum takes up your entire refrigerator.
You have no room for actual food.
Exactly. You have no room for healthy food. You tied up a big chunk of your grocery money in mayo. And eventually, half of it goes bad, and you just have to throw it away. You didn't save money, you wasted it, and you ruined your fridge in the process.
Wait, that is a highly accurate, if slightly terrifying analogy.
Thank you.
Because in a real-world supply chain, that 50-gallon drum of mayonnaise translates to massive inventory holding costs.
Right.
A business now has to pay to heat, cool, and secure a warehouse just to store all those excess raw materials.
Just sitting there doing nothing.
Exactly. And you also run the risk of the materials becoming obsolete before you can even use them, or degrading in quality, because remember, the agent bought from the cheapest, lowest quality bidder.
Oh, right, because they only cared about the price tag.
Yep. The purchasing agent got their bonus, but the company's overall financial goals were completely undermined.
So how do companies stop doing that? Like, how do they avoid the mayonnaise trap?
Well, organizations are shifting away from purely measuring cost and moving toward measuring value for the ultimate customer.
Oh, value.
And to do that, you really have to understand the difference between lagging indicators and diagnostic metrics.
Which the text breaks down pretty clearly.
It does. A lagging indicator just gauges past performance. Think of it like looking in the rearview mirror.
Okay.
It's last quarter's transportation costs or last month's late delivery numbers. It tells you what happened, but it offers zero help in figuring out what will happen next.
So it's basically just a report card of the past. It's too late to fix it.
Precisely. Diagnostic metrics, on the other hand, reflect the overall health and current operational pulse of the organization.
They're more real time.
Yeah, they help you predict and control the flow. And when you're dealing with external partners like major retailers, these metrics become incredibly high stakes.
Oh, for sure. The text discusses retail compliance KPIs, or key performance indicators.
Right.
Things like OTIF, which stands for on time and full, or MBD, which is must arrive by date.
And those are not suggestions. Retailers today operate on incredibly thin profit margins, partly due to, intense competition from online sales.
But they can't mess around.
They really can't afford to hold excess inventory in their own backrooms. They demand that their suppliers deliver exactly what was ordered, exactly when it was promised.
But if they don't?
If a supplier fails an OTIF metric, the retailer doesn't just send a strongly worded email. They issue brutal financial chargebacks.
Yeah, I was reading about that. You fail the metric, you pay a penalty.
Yeah.
Every single violation.
Yep.
Wrong label placement. Chargeback. Barcode won't scan on the dock. Chargeback. Truck arrives an hour early. Chargeback.
The financial penalties are severe and immediate. And this raises an important question. How do you keep track of all these competing priorities?
Right, because you want lowest cost, highest quality, perfect delivery timing.
Exactly. How do you balance all that without completely overwhelming your staff with hundreds of conflicting metrics?
See, that is exactly what I was wondering while reading through the sources. If I'm a logistics manager, my purchasing team is fighting my warehouse team, and my warehouse team is fighting my transportation team. Like, how do I get everyone rowing in the same direction?
Well, the short answer is you don't try to invent a system from scratch.
Oh, okay.
You adopt an industry-standard master blueprint. The text highlights a major one, which is this SCORE-DS framework.
And that stands for Supply Chain Operations Reference Digital Standard, right?
Got it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the visual they use in the text for this framework is completely unexpected.
It throws a lot of people off.
Yeah. Instead of a straight line, like raw materials to factory to truck to store, SCORE-DS uses this infinity loops model. It's a continuous, never-ending network of processes.
That visual is crucial because modern supply chains are not linear. You don't just make something and forget about it.
Right.
The SCORE-DS model outlines 4 main infinity loops. There's demand, supply, synchronize, and regenerate.
Okay, let's make that concrete for the listener. Imagine we are running a company that makes high-end, custom running shoes. How did those 4 loops actually work in real life?
Let's break it down. The demand loop is how you handle the customer wanting the shoe. Taking the order, processing the payment, figuring out what the stores actually need.
Makes sense.
Then the supply loop is your factory sourcing that proprietary foam for the soles and physically assembling the shoe.
Got it. What about regenerate?
The regenerate loop handles the circular economy, so maybe the customer returns a defective pair, or they send back an old pair to be recycled into new foam.
Oh, I see. And what's wild is that all of those loops revolve around one central hub. Like, they all intersect at a process called orchestrate.
Orchestrate is the brain of the operation. It's how a company integrates all those internal and external processes.
It connects everything.
Yeah, it involves the business rules and technology that make the demand loop talk seamlessly to the supply loop.
Which is where that 4th loop, synchronize, comes in, right?
Yes, exactly. Synchronize is all about timing.
Okay.
If your demand loop says a customer wants a custom blue shoe next Tuesday, and your supply loop says it takes 3 days to make, the Orchestrate hub uses the Synchronize loop to ensure the blue dye arrives at the factory on Thursday.
Ah, so it prevents you from buying a 50-gallon drum of blue dye a year early.
Exactly. And it prevents you from running out of dye when you actually need it.
Okay, so SCORE-DS gives you the map. But as I was looking through the text, there was a rule about strategy that really caught my eye, and honestly have to push back on it a little.
Oh, let's hear it.
So the text outlines 3 categories of performance attributes: resilience, economic, and sustainability.
Right.
And under those, you have things like reliability, responsiveness, agility, cost, and profit. Now, the rule states that when designing a supply chain, a company can usually only be superior, which they define as being in the top 10% of competitors in one single attribute.
Yes.
They can have an advantage, which is the top 30% in 2 attributes.
Yeah.
And they just have to accept parity, which means being perfectly average and all the rest.
That is the rule.
But why? Like if I'm building a multi-billion-dollar sneaker company, why can't I just decide I'm going to be the absolute best at everything? Fastest delivery, cheapest price, highest quality. Why limit myself?
I mean, it's the fundamental reality of business physics. You cannot have the absolute cheapest cost and the absolute fastest, most agile delivery at all times.
Really?
Never.
Never.
The massive resources required to achieve top 10% performance and speed will inherently destroy your ability to be in the top 10% for lowest cost.
Ugh. Because flying a single pair of sneakers overnight across the world on a private cargo plane is incredibly fast, but it is definitely not cheap.
Exactly. It is all about conscious trade-offs. ScoreDS forces leadership to sit down and agree on what they actually want to be famous for.
You have to choose.
You do. If you're listening to this and you run a small business or even just a department within a larger company, this is the exact moment you have to decide what your true identity is.
Yeah.
If your strategy is to be a low-margin, high-volume discount brand, your superior attribute better be cost management, and you just have to accept that your delivery speed might just be at parity.
And by using the ScoreDS KPI trees, you measure these choices.
Precisely.
I love the idea of a KPI tree.
Oh.
Let's stick with our sneaker company. Let's say we decide our superior attribute is going to be reliability. We want our customers to trust us completely. How does the tree work?
Okay, so at level 1, the top of the tree, your high-level KPI is perfect customer order fulfillment.
But that's a really broad diagnostic metric.
It is. A warehouse worker doesn't know what to do with a vague goal like that. So ScoreDS drills it down. At level 2, that splits into more actionable branches, like percentage of orders delivered in full.
And then at level 3, it gets super granular.
Very granular. Level 3 might be delivery item accuracy, like did we put the blue size 10 shoe in the box or accidentally a red size 9?
Okay, wow.
It connects the big CEO strategy directly to the person packing the box. You choose where to be excellent, and you give yourself permission to just be good enough elsewhere.
That makes total sense. It stops the company from tearing itself apart, trying to do the impossible.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears slightly. We've talked about measuring the physical movement of goods, getting the right shoe to the right door. But how does that translate into a language that the C-suite understands?
The money.
Yeah, how do we prove to the board of directors that all this logistics work is actually making the company money?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to talk about financial performance metrics. Specifically, the strategic profit model and ROA, which stands for return on assets.
ROA, okay.
This is the ultimate report card for logistics professionals.
The text gives very specific formula for ROA.
Yeah.
It's net profit margin multiplied by asset turnover.
It is a critical formula because logistics and supply chain professionals control a massive portion of both of those variables.
You really do.
They manage the physical assets, the warehouses, the fleets of trucks, and most importantly, the millions of dollars tied up in inventory. That directly impacts the asset turnover side of the equation.
So asset turnover basically means how efficiently you are using your stuff to generate sales, right?
Basically, yeah.
Like if I have $1 million of sneakers sitting in a warehouse gathering dust, my asset turnover is terrible.
Yes. The goal is to reduce that inventory without causing a stockout. Because a stockout is when a customer wants to buy, but you have nothing to sell.
Right. But how do they actually do that? Like, how do you shrink your inventory without running out of product?
Through better data sharing and techniques like cross-docking.
Cross-docking.
Yeah. If your demand loop forecasting is highly accurate, you don't need to keep 10,000 pairs of shoes in a warehouse just in case.
Okay.
You schedule the inbound truck from the factory to arrive at the exact same time as the outbound truck heading to the stores. You move the pallets directly across the loading dock from one truck to the other.
Oh, so the inventory barely even touches the ground.
Exactly. You slash your holding costs, which massively boosts your asset turnover.
And on the other side of the equation, logistics controls a huge chunk of the expenses. The transportation costs, the fuel, which affects the net profit margin side.
Right. By streamlining transportation and eliminating unnecessary storage, logistics directly multiplies the ROA. Proving a high ROA is how a supply chain manager proves they are a powerful value creator for the business.
Not just an expensive overhead department.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? The way I see it, it's like judging a race car driver.
Okay, I like this.
You don't just look at whether they cross the finish line first. You look at how little fuel they used and how few sets of tires they completely burned through to get that win.
Oh, that's good.
Because anyone can win a race if they have $1 billion of unlimited fuel and endless tires. But true efficiency, getting the win while preserving the assets, That is what makes you a champion.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. But it leads to the next challenge.
Which is?
How do you know if your race car driver's fuel efficiency is actually any good compared to what's possible?
Well, you have to compare them to the other drivers on the track.
Yes. And in the corporate world, that is called benchmarking. You have to know where you stand objectively.
The text outlines 3 vital types of benchmarking, right?
It does. First is competitive benchmarking, where you compare your specific metrics, like distribution lead time, directly against a rival in your own industry.
So if your rival delivers in 2 days and it takes you 4, you have a quantifiable gap to close.
Exactly. Second is process benchmarking. This isn't just about the numbers, it's comparing your daily operations against a checklist of world-class processes.
Like, are we using the best global practices for warehouse safety, regardless of what industry we're actually in?
Right, because good safety is good safety. And finally, internal benchmarking, which is simply beating your own historical data. Are we better today than we were last year?
But the text has a really stark warning about this. It basically says that resting on your laurels is a death sentence.
It is entirely unsustainable. If you are not actively benchmarking and pushing for continuous improvement, you are moving backward.
Because your competitors are improving?
Always. And when they figure out how to shave 5% off their logistics costs, they will use those savings to lower their prices, and they will put you out of business.
Wow, it's adapt or die. But here's the thing about benchmarking. You can benchmark your paper-based manual processes all day long, trying to squeeze out a tiny 1% improvement.
Right.
But if your competitor figures out how to automate the entire system using data and artificial intelligence, your benchmarks are suddenly useless. They aren't just playing the game better, they change the shape of the entire game.
You're talking about digital transformation.
Yes. The text introduces an entirely new way of looking at this called the Digital Capabilities Model, or DCM, for supply networks.
And before we get into it, the text makes a really sharp distinction between 2 words that sound identical but are miles apart: digitization and digitalization.
Yeah, that tripped me up at first.
It is a critical distinction that trips up a lot of companies. Digitization is simple. It just means taking a physical object and making a digital representation of it.
Like taking a paper purchase order and scanning it into a PDF so a computer can store it. But it's still the exact same clunky, human-driven process. Like someone still has to open the PDF, read it, and manually type the numbers into another system.
Digitalization, on the other hand, is transformative. It is taking that process and making it an automated, synergistic system.
So the system talks to itself.
Yes. It's having a system that automatically generates the purchase order based on real-time store sales, sends it directly to the supplier's computer, matches it to the invoice, and triggers the payment instantly, all without a human lifting a finger.
And that level of transformation is what the Digital Capabilities Model maps out. It completely shatters the old idea of a linear chain.
It really does.
The DCM envisions a dynamic, interconnected network. Now, the text lists 6 interconnected nodes here, but I want to focus on just a couple of them to show how they synergize. Let's look at the connected customer node and the dynamic fulfillment node.
Okay, let's bring back our sneaker company example. In a non-digitalized world, you make a shoe, sell it, and hope the customer likes it. In the digital capabilities model, your connected customer node means maybe the sneaker itself has a smart sensor in it.
Oh, wow.
And it feeds running data back to the company.
Which then flows instantly into another node, right? Product development.
Exactly.
So the designers see exactly where the sole is wearing out the fastest, so they reinforce that spot for next year's model.
And it feeds into the dynamic fulfillment node. The system knows the customer runs 30 miles a week. It calculates that their current shoes will lose their tread by October 15th.
That's crazy.
So on October 1st, it automatically offers them a discount on the new, improved model and dynamically routes the inventory from a local micro-fulfillment center so it arrives at their door right before their old shoes fail.
Okay, what's fascinating here is how beautifully this digital capabilities model interlocks with the Escort DS framework we discussed earlier. They aren't competing models. They stack together perfectly.
Yes. Remember the Orchestrate hub in the center of the Escort DS Infinity Loops?
Yeah, the brain of the operation.
In the DCM, Orchestrate is the vital process that maps directly to the connected customer and product development nodes.
Wait, let me make sure I'm hearing this right. The logistics framework, the thing traditionally used to manage warehouses and trucks, maps directly to product development and the customer experience.
It does. It proves that modern logistics isn't just about moving boxes around.
Right.
When you reach this level of digital maturity, logistics is actually shaping the product itself and defining the customer experience from day one. It is a completely integrated web of value creation.
That completely flips the script on what a supply chain is supposed to do.
It really does.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's just recap the journey real quick.
Sounds good.
We started with the behavioral trap of bad KPIs. Remember the 50-gallon mayonnaise disaster?
Yeah.
And the purchasing agent who almost ruined the company just to get a discount?
Hard to forget.
Then we explored the Score DS blueprint and its infinity loops orbiting around orchestration. We translated those physical operations into financial gold using return on assets and the power of benchmarking. And finally, we shattered the old linear chain with the interconnected web of the digital capabilities model.
And if there is one overarching theme to connect all of this back to you, the listener, it is this. Whether you are running a global logistics network, managing a small team at an office, or honestly, just organizing your own daily habits and routines.
Yeah.
What you choose to measure dictates the behavior you will get.
Measure the wrong thing, you get the wrong results.
Measurement is not neutral. It is an active force that drives action. If you track hours worked, you will get people sitting at their desks longer. If you track problem solved, you will get actual solutions.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We talked about that harsh but necessary rule from the Score DS strategy. Knowing that you only have the resources to be superior, like in the top 10% at one thing, and maybe an advantage in two others, while accepting average parity in the rest.
Right.
Try applying that to your own life or your career right now. If you look at yourself like a complex supply chain, what is the one single attribute you are consciously choosing to prioritize and be superior at?
It's a tough question.
It is. And perhaps even more importantly, what is the one thing you are finally going to give yourself permission to just be average at so you have the fuel to win your own race? Think about it. Thanks for taking the deep dive with us.